Let's jump into the favorite to win the NFC South, and that is, of course, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Looks like Tom Brady is back. No harm, no foul. The win total is 11.5, juiced to the under at -130. So you do get +110 on the over. I have them favored in every game but one, I believe. So I can see why the win total is up so high. I don't know. I think they still may have a good O-line. What do you think of the O-line? I know we got Hainsey replacing Jensen. Obviously, that's a big loss, but I think he could be serviceable. So it's all about this guy Gadecki now on the inside. But what do you think of the line?
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that could be troublesome throughout the year because how do you beat Brady? Brady gets its interior pressure. That's always been the MO, and because he gets rid of the ball so quick, he's also not mobile, right? He is maybe the best pocket presence of all time. So you're just not going to get a lot compared to against other quarterbacks. You're not going to rattle him. You're not going to get a ton off the edge. He can always check down. He's just so good at reading defenses. But if you can get pressure up the middle, that's when we've seen Brady at his worst. And the Saints do a really good job of getting pressure against him. So yeah, I mean, Gadecki is a rookie from the MAC who played tackle he played tackle for Central Michigan, graded out at an elite level, obviously. Central Michigan had 2 tackles going the first 3 rounds. But now he's got to slide into guard. You have a new center. And you did at least sign Shaq Mason, but you lost 3 key pieces, and now Stinney went down with another injury. You still have 2 of the best tackles, one of the best tackle duos in the NFL, which obviously helps, but the interior is just even more important for Brady. So yeah, I think it's definitely a concern. We'll see when and if Gronk comes back and Godwin as well. So I think overall the offense got worse. Do we even entertain the thought that Brady is going to have a drop? I mean, we just don't even talk about it. There's no evidence to suggest that. So you just assume that he can have the same effectiveness until he's 70 years old. But maybe there's one day where he has a little bit of a drop off. But this is, new head coach, but he's been there, and it's a pretty similar team with more offensive questions, I think, than they had last year. Defense got, a little younger in a couple spots. Still should be pretty good. I'm curious to see what happens with Bowles as head coach to the play calling. And does he lose a little bit of his defensive magical touch just from an attention standpoint? So yeah, I don't think that the Bucs are as good as they were last year, but they still have Brady. I do think the interior offensive line is an issue. We'll see when they get their full arsenal of weapons back. I project them around 11 wins, even though they won their division. They have a pretty easy schedule because of their division. So yeah, if I had to bet it, I would take under, but I don't show enough value to bet it. And this is pretty much the last hurrah for the Bucs because they're in bad cap space. And I don't know how much longer Brady's going to be in Tampa. I guess as long as he's there, it's fine. But they're basically just trying to run it back. I would lean under. But the interior offensive line is what to watch because that could disrupt their entire offense. And then obviously getting Godwin back at some point and fully healthy will provide a big boost.
Yeah, I think, Gadecki, it really comes down to him. I think Hainsey will be decent. He was a better pass blocker than run blocker, so at least that's good. And Mason was quietly a top 5 guard last year in terms of how he graded out. So it really comes down to Gadecki on the inside. I do agree. I think the skill positions did get worse, at least on paper. If they could stay healthy and Godwin comes back, and doesn't miss like half the season or something, I think you still got, pretty good skill positions with Russell Gage, Julio Jones as your number 3 and 4. I think most teams would take that even, with Julio at this age. Obviously you're going to miss Gronk at tight end. You got Brayton Rudolph. So I think the wide receivers will be key this year. You might have to keep Fournette or whoever's playing running back in the block a little bit more, but still a lot of talent on this team on both sides of the ball. Like the defensive line with Vita Vea, Hicks, Shaq Barrett. You still got Levante David. Winfield's one of the best safeties in the league. Davis, one of the better corners. Jamel Dean as well on the other side. So, you really, there's no issue with talent, but, I have them favored by some small margins in a lot of games. And I think the reason I wouldn't touch the over with this team, and I would probably lean under as well, is they have a stretch to start the year where, like, it's not out of the question that they go 0-4. They have at Dallas, which, it's not an easy game in Dallas. Then you have at New Orleans. New Orleans always has their number. You mentioned it, interior pressure. Then you have home against Green Bay, home against Kansas City. I usually like them matching up with Green Bay. I think they could get pressure without necessarily sending blitzers. And now there's no Devontae, so they probably win that one. But still a pretty tough schedule to start the year for the Bucs when they're going to be, getting used to this new O-line. And Brady's missed, a couple weeks of camp, and Godwin might not be healthy for those, first few games. So it is kind of the opposite. What is the opposite of a perfect storm? I don't even know. I'm kind of tongue tied right now, but
an imperfect storm. I don't know.
Whatever that is, that opening 4 games to start the year, that could decide their win total right there.
Yeah. I'll be actually looking to fade them early in the season, depending on the spot. But another thing to worry about with this team is, obviously you just can't, Brady can't go down, but that's a given. With most teams, you can't have your quarterback go down. All of a sudden you're down to Blaine Gabbert or Kyle Trask. But given the cap room, the cap situation of this team, the depth is not great.
Yeah.
So if they have bad injury luck, it can get ugly quick. You saw that with the secondary last year. Bowles wasn't able to kind of do his thing while there was injuries in the secondary. So you hope that they stay healthy, but there's not great depth, and it isn't overall. It's a aging. I would say it's a aging defense, but they to get a bit younger, but just the depth is a little bit worrisome. And I agree. I think there might be some struggles early on, and it's Brady. They'll find a way to get into the playoffs and be dangerous, and then probably add Gronk back and have a healthy Godwin. But given some of the questions, I would lean under, if anything.
Yeah, that O-line depth could be a concern. Especially the way guys are going down for them. We haven't even started the season. Let's go to the Saints. The Saints are at a win total of 8.5, -105 to the over. They dropped from 4th in 2020 to 25th last year in adjusted games lost due to injury. So they could bounce back just based on that. The O-line should take a step back. Obviously, they lost Teron Armstead. But I don't know. I'm curious to get your thoughts on the Saints, because I just feel like this team has a lot of variance. I like the defense. They have a stud on each level with Jordan, Demario Davis at linebacker, Lattimore at corner, Matthew at safety. If Kamara doesn't get suspended, obviously you get a stud for the full season there. We'll see about Michael Thomas, but I like this kid Olave. So it's going to come down to Jameis and, some of these other things that could go either way. Like, is Kamara going to get suspended? Is Michael Thomas ever going to come back? Is Jameis going to kind of continue his newfound efficiency and ball security from last year? And can he do that on a higher volume? Like, there's all these things that could kind of go either way. So, I feel like this team could win 6 games or they could win 11 games. So where are you on the Saints team?
Yeah, with the Saints, I project them at like 8-7. So I would lean over. I talked about that. I think it was at 8 when we did our pre-draft podcast. And I'm hearing, everything I'm hearing is that Kamara's not going to be suspended this year, which is good. And I agree on the variance. Their defense is a top 5 on paper.
Mm-hmm.
You lost. They're in the worst salary cap position of any team in the NFL, and they said let's go for it one more time. They might have to blow some things up soon here, but yeah, the defense is a top 5 unit. The offensive line will still be good, and your wide receiver situation is significantly better than it was last year. And their quarterback situation as well. The question is, how much of an impact and how much was Sean Payton worth? And I don't know. I can't answer that. And will Winston go off the rails without him? You still have the same offense coordinator who's been there for 2 decades, and Pete Carmichael, but I don't know what Peyton was worth. But if Winston can kind of manage the game and continue to progress, this offense has potential, and they are in a potentially weak division. So how do you play it? I don't show enough value to play the over right now, but I'll have my futures piece out later this week on actionnetwork.com and the Action Network app. My win total is already out there. Saints to win the division. I don't hate it. So we just talked about the Bucs starting out potentially struggles earlier in the year. I don't think that either of us think that they're going to miss the playoffs, but there's a world where in that, because I agree, the variance is high with the Bucs. Peyton, okay, he was worth something, but not as much as we thought he potentially could have been. Jameis is good. Kamara's not suspended, which we don't think. Michael Thomas comes back. You added Landry. I agree on Olave. Top 5D. Great home field advantage with 9 home games. A team also, it used to be the Ravens. You could say like kind of owned Brady for a period of time. The Saints have owned Brady recently. That defense and the pressure that they can generate. So, they swept them, and the first team to do that maybe ever in the division 1 or 2 years ago. So that's obviously massive to win in the division. So is there a world where the Bucs go, they both finish with 10 wins and the Saints swept, or the Saints are on the upper part of that, of the results that we think? Because you said, I can see 6 to 11. So I think there's a world where the Bucs win 10 and the Saints win 11 games, and the head-to-head success helps. So I like the Saints, taking a flyer on the Saints to win the division, which speaks to that variance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I could say enough about this defense. I mean, there are question marks about the offense. There's obviously high upside, but I mean, up front with Davenport and Jordan, Onyemata, Davis, Warner, like it's just, this defense is loaded. I could see this team winning a lot of low-scoring games if they have to, even if the offense, maybe Michael Thomas isn't at full strength right away. Like I could still see this team, kind of gutting out some ugly wins. And I think it's a interesting hedge if, maybe you don't like, maybe you think the NFC East is only going to send one team, or you're not as high on the Vikings. Saints plus 125 to make the playoffs. I don't hate that either. And if the Saints are on the high end of their variance, I think Dennis Allen, 30-1 coach of the year, is interesting, because if they win, 10, 11, 12 games, they'll probably have a signature win against the Bucs in there. And it'll probably be, they're going to be kind of a surprise, because, no one's really expecting this. They're 8.5 for the win total, but, Allen is one of the longest odds for coach of the year. But I think if they surprise some people, I don't mind that bet at all, Dennis Allen, because you usually need like 11, 12 wins to get there. And I do see that on the high end of outcomes for the Saints. So I think you have to invest in the upside with this team.
Yeah, I also love the versatility of their secondary, which is going to allow them to do a lot of different things from a scheme perspective. We know the front is already good. So yeah, this is an excellent defense, high upside offense. I'm playing them to win the division.
Yeah, and if Paulson Adebo takes a step forward, I mean, watch out, because as a rookie, it was he played a lot, but wasn't great. But if he can add like a plus corner on the other side of Lattimore, I mean, you got Matthew back there, Marcus May coming off a down year, but he's been good most of his career. So that could have been an aberration. I mean, you could have like 9, 10. Blue chip players on this defense. You look up middle of the year if things go right for this team. So yeah, I a lot of upside. I like that division play as well.
I think you get like plus. What did I see out there? Plus 350-ish. My write up that I think you could find a maybe plus 340. But obviously shop around as always. But yeah, actually, I'm a big fan of Adebo. I think he's going to be a solid starting cornerback in this league.
All right, let's go to the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, the big news, they acquired Baker Mayfield, and he was named the week 1 starter by head coach Matt Rule this week. Their win total, 6.5, 110 both ways. I don't think they're going to have a good O-line. I have them favored in only 3 games. Matt Rule, so far, 0-2 when going to the win total over by an average of 1.5 wins per season. So if they don't get to 7 wins this year, he's gone. What do you think of this Panthers team with Baker at the helm?
Yeah, it's an interesting team. I mean, they went 2-6 in one possession games last year, and I think their offensive line, it's not going to be a strength, but it'll be better than it was last year. And look, this podcast hates Sam Darnold. I think thinks he's awful. Panthers when he was on the Jets, I would bet the win total every year. Panthers win total under last year. Baker Mayfield isn't Tom Brady, but I think he serves as a somewhat substantial upgrade to Darnold. I mean, the Panthers quarterbacks last year, it wasn't all Darnold. I mean, Darnold was awful because he is awful, but you also had like the corpse of Cam Newton in there, and what's his name? The Temple product, PJ Walker, who now is probably going to get a spot again on this. He was auditioning, I think, for a spot, but Corral got hurt. I assume they're just going to IR him.
I don't think they're going to keep Walker. I think they're getting rid of him. He's been bad, man. I think they're just going to either go with 2 or like pick somebody else up. I doubt they go Walker.
But he's like the Matt Rule, like Temple guy. It's like his boy.
True.
But they had 14. I think they had 14 passing touchdowns, and 21 interceptions last year.
They don't practice the red zone according to Teddy Bridgewater, so not surprising.
For an NFL team, 14 touchdowns and 21 interceptions.
Yeah, 14 and 21. And they only had I think they only had 16 the year before. They have 30 touchdown passes in their last 33 games.
Yeah, unbelievable. So I think Baker Mayfield, and obviously quarterback is the most important position in the game, is going to provide an upgrade for the offense, and so that should help. So Christian McCaffrey, what are you going to get with him? That's obviously a major question mark. A lot of miles on those tires. If he's healthy, he's obviously one of the best backs in the NFL. I'm curious to get your thoughts on him from a fantasy perspective. Who is Terrace Marshall also is something to consider. It just seems like he's from everything that I hear, he's a complete bust. And and Robbie Anderson is he's tough to figure out. You do have DJ Moore there, but I think the offensive line will be a little better, still not a strength. The defense is, you gotta, how much can you take from JC Horn's start? If you remember, he was unbelievable last year, but what can you really take from a rookie corner? But it was only a couple games, and that's when everyone was like, the Panthers are going to win the Super Bowl, and they started 3-0, and they played like 3 backup quarterbacks in the worst offenses in the league. So you have to hope that he is the real deal at corner, and that will significantly help your defense, because I like their safety situation. You have Dante Jackson and one other cornerback. Brian Burns, who I love, generating pressure off the edge. So I think a lot's going to come down to like who is Horn, and how healthy is this for the defense. But yeah, it's a middling team. I project them at surprisingly, I project them at 6, 9, 7. So I leaned over when it was at 6. And I wish we talked about betting the over, because it was like, if they just get any quarterback, we would consider it a massive upgrade over Darnold. So I probably should have bet the over back then, assuming that Rule's last stand, he's going to not put it all on Darnold or PJ Walker. So I don't know. I was thinking about taking a flyer on Panthers like 4-1 to make the playoffs, going over on their win total. I just couldn't get there. But curious to get your thoughts on them, and then your thoughts on McCaffrey. And with a running back, because a lot of times it's just like, who cares? You can't predict injuries. He's healthy now. But there's ligament, soft tissue issues with a running back, a lot of miles. It's a bit concerning, but do you just throw that out and assume he's going to play a full workload? What are your thoughts on McCaffrey this year and the Panthers overall?
Yeah, so you kind of hit on it with most guys. You know, you kind of say you can't really predict injuries. What you do want is them going into the year healthy. So like last year, Saquon Barkley was a big fade for me. You know, he was coming to the year hurt. You know, he never really got going, and then once he did, he got hurt again, and that's kind of what you get. McCaffrey's been really unlucky. He's just had like a whole slew of different injuries. None of them that are really concerning in the long term. So he will be, you know, he turned 26 this year. You know, should have another year, maybe 2 left in his prime. So I would draft McCaffrey as high as 2nd overall. You just from a predictive standpoint, you can't really look and say, okay, he's only played 10 games the last 2 years. You know, he's not going to make it through the season. Like he just had a bunch of bad luck. Like kind of contrast him with somebody like Michael Thomas, who had, you know, barely didn't play at all last year, in and out of the lineup the year before, and just getting over one injury, and now he's got another injury. Like that's a concern. With McCaffrey, not concerned as of yet, or you know, as of now. I think he should give them, you know, what he's given them in the past. They are going to try to lighten his workload a little. They got Foreman and Chuba Hubbard, so but they're going to need McCaffrey because, like you said, it's a middling team. I can't get there on the over either. I mean, it is like the defense. They have some potential. Like they could be like the Bizarro Saints. You know, they have a lot of like good players, where the Saints have like all these great players on defense. So I could see the Panthers, you know, in some low scoring games, but don't like the depth on offense. I mean, if you lose McCaffrey or more, like it's over. Like it's you know, you're back at square one.
Or Mayfield, then you're back to Darnold.
Yeah, right. And then to answer your question about Terrace Marshall, so our dude Matt Harmon does reception perception, where he takes a 8-game sample and charts, you know, how well these receivers get open. You know, not just when they're targeted, just you know, just watches all the routes. And Terrace Marshall, out of all the people he's charted, and he's done this since I believe probably over half a decade now. Terrace Marshall, 1st percentile success rate against man coverage. 1st percentile success rate against zone coverage. He literally had the worst season that Matt ever charted for a wide receiver. So, you know, guys tend to make a jump, you know, year 1 to year 2, but like he could make the craziest jump and still be terrible. So yeah, it's not looking great for Terrace Marshall. DJ Moore is a stud, but you got to keep him healthy. You just got to get him in the end zone. He scored 4 touchdowns exactly, I think, every single year. You know, these last 3. So, yeah, I'm not there at the Panthers. I just don't know. I can't really trust Matt Rule. I don't like how the offenses has kind of underperformed. And the Panthers, they keep doing this where I don't know. Mayfield is a step up, but like, remember the Broncos had that phase where they just kept trying to like sell their fan base on these like reclamation projects. Like, oh yeah, we got Case Keenum. This is it. It's like the Panthers like, oh, we got Teddy Bridgewater. This is it. Oh, we got Sam Darnold. We're going to fix him. And now it's like, oh, we got Baker Mayfield. It just, he's better than the first 2. But I just don't know if he moves the needle for this offense. I think it's going to have to come on defense. And again, I think they have a lot of solid to good players, but unlike the Saints, I don't think they have a ton of like straight up studs. I really like Jeremy Chin and Shaq Thompson, but this is another team with some variance. If things break right, yeah, they could win 7-8 games, but things break wrong, they could also win 3 or 4.
Yep.
The Falcons, everybody at one point, at least everybody's favorite under. It's 5 with juice to the under at -145. The over is +125. They actually had good injury luck last year, and they just beat all the bad teams they faced, essentially. Like that was like the Falcons. It was like when they face a bad team, just lock them in for a win. And when they face a decent or better team, they're going to lose. They beat the Giants, the Jets, the Jaguars, the Panthers, the Lions last year. As well.
They also went 7-2 in 1 possession games.
Yeah. It's So they're going for some regression. Their expected win-loss, according to their point differential, was 4.9. Again, they won 7 games, so they're not fooling anybody this year. I don't even have them favored in any game, actually. But so yeah, I don't know. Is this the under, or what are you doing here?
Yeah, I have them favored in 0 games.
Yeah.
And the closest, what is there? Let's see. I mean, they're at Seattle.
Yeah, I think I got them in a pick or 2.
Yeah, they'll be home against Cleveland now without Watson, which helps. They obviously get the Panthers at home, the Bears at home, which is I have that as like 49.8%. And that's about it. I project them at like 4.49. So like I got nothing in this team stinks. They're in cap rebuild, cap massacre rebuild. Mario, the offensive line is bad. The weapons outside of Pitts are very questionable. You really need Drake London to have a year. Maybe Mariota, or does it end up eventually being Desmond Ridder, who I'm not a fan of personally. But Mariota at least has wheels. So like, does that help in a weird way? Because Ryan doesn't. The offensive line was bad. The defense, the corners I like.
Yes.
You added Hayward, but they get no help from the defensive line. I think the Falcons have one of the 5 lowest sack rates since the merger last year. They get no pressure. It's just a bad financial position. They're this whole team's in a bad financial position from the previous regime, going all in and then blowing 28-3. You also lose Calvin Ridley for the year to gambling, which doesn't help. Depth is really bad too. So like injuries anywhere are devastating. Overall talent, they're right there with the Bears as the worst team in the NFC. And they're a negative regression candidate. So yeah, there's not much to like, but I project 4.5, and this team stinks.
Yeah, I think they're going to be the team that everyone plays tight ends against in fantasy, because I do like their corners. You mentioned it. Hayward's good. AJ Terrell. I mean, if Jair gets challenged for best corner in the league, Terrell is up there on that list as guys that could take that next step. He was really good last year. And then Oliver, he's been up and down. Yeah, he's been up and down, but he was good last year as well. Didn't last long. I think he got hurt in week 4. So, the corner should be good, but it's gonna be challenging to kind of scheme around it when, like you said, they just don't get pressure. And that's just an issue. They still got Dean Pease there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's all pissed off about it. He's talking about how mediocre is not good enough, but I just don't see how you really get the most out of this defense with no pass rush. I mean, maybe the rookie Beckety dude out of Penn State, maybe he'll be good, but they really need it now. If he's good, maybe they cobble together like a decent, like non-terrible defense, but I still think the linebackers are going to struggle in coverage, and I think the safeties are going to struggle in coverage. And so, teams are just going to kind of go up the seam, go over the middle. It's going to be like the Chiefs a few years ago. And then on offense, you mentioned it, they have Pitts, they have London, but God forbid something happened to either of them. Brian Edwards doesn't get open. OZ, coach loves him, but probably more of a 4th, 5th receiver than should be. He shouldn't really be a starting slot or starting receiver in this league. And the O-line is kind of, hit or miss as well. So
yeah, I also think that Dean Pease has a history of, in year 2, complex defensive the defense really takes a jump in efficiency. So maybe they can generate some pressure in the corner situation, which is so big in the NFL if you have a good cornerback situation. So maybe the defense can get a bit better. But I'm just not a fan of Arthur Smith either. He's shown me nothing from a head coaching perspective. Decision making.
What do you mean? He got a monster season out of Patterson. Is that not worth anything?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, just from an in-game decision making and it seems kind of, I don't know, kind of clueless to me. But yeah, there's not much to love about this team. Maybe they end up being a good under team if the defense takes a step up in Peas year 2 with that secondary. But it's going to be ugly. I think I have them dogs at more than a touchdown in like 9 games. So, maybe they, I wouldn't bet under 4.5 is really tough to bet in the NFL because you're opening, they could certainly win the opener against the Saints. Like division dogs are the absolute tits in week 1. And that's when you see, I think, more cast than normal in the NFL in week 1. So with Jameis throwing that game away, surprised me? No. And then you also get like the Bucs at home to close out the year. So the Bucs do have a big year. That game could be for nothing, right? You're playing against Gabbert. And as mentioned, you also get the Bears at home. You get the Steelers at home.
Panthers.
The Panthers at home. So it's still an NFL team. You get the Browns at home without Watson. You're at the Seahawks. So there's certainly some winnable games on this roster. I project 4.5 you got to be and the market obviously is pretty efficient, but you got to be some kind of bet for me to go to under 4.5 in a 17-game schedule in the NFL. Maybe I'd go under 4.5 if they had Darnold at quarterback, but pass.
Yeah, the depth is probably going to be their undoing, but those cornerbacks just make me a little bit uncomfortable because it could just be one of those teams that a little bit more low scoring than we think, and then it's like they still got weapons at least to start the year with Pitts and London and Mariota running around and Patterson as well. So yeah, not feeling good about that under.
It could end up being an upgrade at quarterback with Mariota. I mean, Ryan's obviously on the downward trend end, but I think that just having Mariota's mobility with those offensive line issues, and you don't have the best wide receiver course, just him buying time could actually end up working out for the offense. So we'll see.